Hey guys, I'm Samim, one of the co-founders at siift.ai here, and I just want to take a minute to kind of explain through some of our thinking, the motivations behind Sift, and really what we're up to. So, Sift is my fifth venture. I've been doing starts for over 10 years across lots of different domains, from fire safety to IoT, smart buildings, music industry, AI, construction, and now tech or startup industry, I guess you could say. And the motivation behind Sift um, really is just to make entrepreneurship more accessible, because the problem that I've faced and I've seen countless other founders face is that there's lots of gatekeeping, there's lots of biases, and there's just a lack of resources, not just funding, but in terms of like proper help or useful advice, mentorship, accelerators, you name it, right? And I think a lot of that is inherent to the nature of the game. Of course, everybody can't get the kind of support needed to become a unicorn company. Sorry. And that's all fine, but what we've noticed is that there's a big early stage gap. And so when people are just ideating, maybe you're brewing on an idea, not sure where to start, or maybe you're in the midst of validating, or you're trying to get some traction and grow, um, but you just can't seem to make a break. Maybe you're a first time founder, maybe you're in a new domain or industry that you don't know very well yet, um, or maybe something else. But ultimately, a lot of people never get to the point where they can demonstrate, their potential, demonstrate what their idea really holds in terms of like value for the world, and never get the attention or never can justify the attention or help of a lot of these ecosystem builders. So it's really sad, because it's like you have the founders on one side trying to like cross this chasm, and on the other side you have the investors, accelerators, advisors wanting to help, but really being limited in terms of the resources that they can help, they can offer in terms of their time, funding, or space, or whatever that means, right? So, yeah, it's really a problem, because nowadays you have more and more people starting things, right? It's easier than ever to vibe code an app on the weekend. Not that vibe coding will get you all the way there, but vibe coding an app uh, really lowers the barrier to entry. So we have this flood of products in the market, right? Um, 10 versions of the same thing, more competition in every single space. And long term, that's good, but for a consumer or for the customers, um, it's problematic, right? Because it's how do you choose? You're overwhelmed with options. You don't want to choose kind of the wrong one. Maybe there's a really cool new one being brewed up right now, and so it's a problem that really hurts everybody, because you're just creating too much noise in the market. You're flooding markets. You're creating 10 versions of something when really maybe only a couple versions of them are viable long term, and maybe nobody can tell who has the viable one, and there's no other way of doing it, right? But ultimately, we believe that consumer choice or customers are going to gravitate to ones that align better with their values, align better with their community, align better with the more human aspects of what they're doing, assuming, of course, the functionality or pricing or other things are relatively similar for people. um, you're going to have to rely on other metrics to make a decision. So I personally think I would buy from somebody who's more familiar, maybe someone I know, someone who is a part of my community, maybe from my geography, maybe associated with companies or other partners that I'm trusting already. And I don't think I'm alone in that choice. So what that means, when we see it from a startup perspective, is you have this flooded market, you have this fragmented market, not just one market really, but this entire industry. Um, and people are trying to find their footing, or trying to find the viable business that they can pursue, but ultimately, um, you know, they need to find founder market fit. And one of the things that makes us very confident in Sift, at least in the early stages here, is our founder market fit. We've been in the game for a long time. We see a lot of the problems, and we hear a lot of the problems firsthand and secondhand about gatekeeping, about how it's just people getting a ton of money based on who they know rather than what they know, and a lot of times those traditional markets or the customers of these products become very jaded or very skeptical as to the value that they can offer. So I'm not bashing, all startups. I think a lot of them do great jobs, but I think we all know there's a stigma, or there's kind of a bad reputation to some of this stuff. So we want to help change that, and I think the main way to do that is by empowering people from the right backgrounds to work in those particular industries. I know plenty of people who maybe they work in a more traditional field, let's say construction, something like that, and they have a great idea. They obviously have domain insight, they know people in the industry, but they just don't have an idea of business sense, or they don't have an idea of how to make the technology work. So maybe they go spin up a vibe coding app nowadays, and that vibe coding app becomes semi-useful, but we're often seeing people now getting stuck after that first paying customer, or getting stuck in the early growth phases of their business. And vibe coding you can't vibe code your way out of that. You can go listen to all the books, or you can go watch all the YouTube videos about that, but we're in a post-information age where people aren't able to consume tons and tons of content and then figure out exactly how to apply little pieces of it to their business very easily. Of course, some people do, and that's the everyday grind for a lot of founders. But if you think about it, people are using ChatGPT, giving a lot of their secrets to ChatGPT, and I'm not innocent of that. We do that plenty at our startup because there's no alternative. And again, this is like common knowledge, is that there just isn't that proprietary place where you can have your own data be properly analyzed, repurposed, serviced, chatted with, and pumped out to you as a founder. So that's kind of what we're hoping we can do with Sift here. Almost make like a ChatGPT for founders type scenario, which not only has that privacy, but also has the structure and guidance, and maybe more of the guardrails that founders need to kind of help protect them from themselves. I've had tons of biases, tons of blind spots, tons of issues, not really issues, but a lot of learning kind of like experiences across the founder journey. And I think that's perfectly natural and fine, and that's how you grow, right? But there's just so many places where founders can be misled, and that's why we're building the Founder's Compass, to kind of help guide people. So the way we see it, using the right tool, or building intentionally with a deep understanding of your market and where you fit in the market and the value that you are perceived to give people in that market, is super important now, because the software is a commodity, the technology is a commodity. People can spin up, or at least they think they can spin up, the thing that you're building very quickly, right? So it's no longer about, oh, I have this really cool widget, or I have this really cool capability. It's a lot more so like, look, I'm coming from the right place, I have the right intentions, I understand the needs of these people in this market and where it should go and how to help innovate in this market. And yeah, we have this really great technology that is built properly for this need, and is a long-term viable solution, at least in theory, for this type of place. So that's kind of the thinking around Sift. I don't want to talk too much around here, but I believe we're entering a new domain where founders are going to become a lot more common and need to be empowered.